Good morning. This video is for those who have either been thrown out of the congregation or pushed out and are wondering how God feels about it. So we might look at John chapter 9, and this is a story of someone else who was thrown out. So Jesus and his disciples were going along a road and they came across a man who was begging because he was blind. So the disciples said to him, "Lord, who sinned? Was it this man or his parents so that he was born blind?" So the disciples here are explaining their Jewish belief that if you were born disabled in any way, it was because either you had sinned in the womb or your parents had sinned. But Jesus said no, neither he nor his parents sinned, but he was blind so that the works of God might be displayed in him. So he cured the blind man, and the blind man could now see. And there's a lot of discussion going on with people thinking, is this the man that was born blind? Or is it somebody that just looks like him? So they took him to the Pharisees. Now here's where the problems start. It was a Sabbath when Jesus cured this man. And of course, the Pharisees have a book of rules, and you can't do this, that, and the other on the Sabbath. So it precludes any form of logic. So the Pharisees were saying, this man cannot be from God because he doesn't keep the Sabbath. And others were saying, how could a sinner produce signs like this? So there were a lot of disagreements. So they asked the once blind man, what do you think? And he said, well, he's a prophet. Well, this was not the answer the Pharisees wanted. So they decided, no, this isn't the man that was born blind. It must be somebody that looks like him. So they called his parents and they said to them, is this your son? And they said, yes, he is our son. But we don't know how it is that he can see now or who opened his eyes. Well, they could easily have found out if they'd wanted to, but they were afraid of the Jews, who had already agreed to expel from the synagogue anyone who should acknowledge Jesus as the Christ. So his parents said, he's old enough, ask him. So they sent for him and they said, give glory to God. For our part, we know this man is a sinner. So they're arguing backwards and forwards. And in the end, the once blind man said to them, now here is an astonishing thing. He has opened my eyes, and you don't know where he comes from. We know that God doesn't listen to sinners, but God does listen to men who are devout and do his will. Ever since the world began, it's unheard of for anyone to open the eyes of a man who was born blind. If this man were not from God, he couldn't do a thing. The Jews couldn't accept this logic. So they said, are you trying to teach us? We're the learned ones here. So you're a sinner through and through since you were born. So they went back to this belief that he was a bad sinner because he had been born blind. So they drove him out. He was driven out of the synagogue. Now this would produce dreadful commercial problems for anyone thrown out of the synagogue because they weren't allowed to engage now in commercial businesses with other Jews. So what did Jesus do? Did he say to himself, oh dear, this man has been expelled by the Jews, therefore I can't speak to him anymore, I'll have to avoid him? No, he didn't. He heard they had driven him out, so he went to look for him. He deliberately sought him out. And he said to him, do you believe in the Son of Man? And the man said yes, he would do if he knew who he was. And Jesus said, yes, well, it's me. And the man said, of course, I do believe. So Jesus looked after that man, and he would have put him in contact, we assume, that he would have put him in contact with other Christians who would have taken care of him and helped him out, because all Christians were outside the synagogue. We have to remember that. So we could spend hours looking at this incident in the Bible, but what I suggest, if it's all right with you, is that you read it through and put what you think it means to you in the comments, and we can have a conversation. I do read all of your comments and I'm most grateful for them, and they flesh out what I have to say, because what I'm saying is just very short. So see how you get on with that. And I won't do another video for a couple of days because these take a bit of thought. So I look forward to hearing what you have to say about this. Thank you very much.